Hello and welcome to episode 41 of the HamCorp Training Manual. In this episode, we address some bottlenecks around the base, build a whole bunch of newly unlocked multiblocks, and craft and set up the multi-threaded component synthesis forge. So I've read up a little bit more about threading, and it is very cool. This also finishes off the entire mechanics page, finally, so this is everything. But the way this works is it's a stat point system, and I can allocate the stats to a couple of different effects. So there are 5 stat points and 4 possible effects. One of the stat points is a general stat, so I can attribute it to any of the different effects. And I'm not sure what the best effects here are, I still have to work it out, but from reading it, it seems like the best ones are Phylum, which lets you do multiple types of recipes at once, so it's parallels, but they have to be different recipes. Well, I don't know if they have to be, I'm not sure, but this is sort of like parallels. There is also Parallelismus, which is parallels, but it also increases duration, so it's kind of worse than parallels. There's Efficienta, which is EU efficiency. I don't really care about this. Well, maybe I do for like super duper EU expensive crafts, but that'll be like a case-by-case basis situation. I think generally, I don't think I'm going to care about this too much. And Velocitas, this is speed, multiplicative, so every time I half the recipe duration, it halves it multiplicatively. So the first time would be half duration, second time is quarter duration, and then an eighth, and then a 16th. But the point costs for these halvings grow quadratically. N squared plus n over 2. Times 100, so it's quite a lot of points. And points are finite. Points are granted by these 2 helix thingies up top. So there's the epic helices, which I don't think I'm gonna make. I mean, I have to make it because they're used in the crafting recipe for the UEV Supreme Thread Helix, but I'm not totally sure I want to be making these. I don't know, they're cheaper. They also have the same number of points as the tier 2 one, so I don't know, maybe I should be making them, actually. But to make them, I need the prismatic helix cores. And interestingly, the scan for this is unlike anything I've ever seen. It is 1 scan for 3 different recipes, which I have really never seen before. It's always been 1-to-1. You have to do 1 scan and that grants you 1 recipe, but this is 1 scan granting you 3 recipes. The scan being this, a lepton resonant cable, so it's not anything crazy. Once I make these, they can be used to make the tier 2, the UEB Supreme Thread Helix, and they can be scanned to make the UIV thread helices, which I think are the highest tier that are in-game. This does need Riftic Infusion Assembly, so I can't do this yet. But yeah, I'm gonna have to figure out like exactly what I want to do over here. Do I want to use these UHV ones, because they all have 20 points in total, but they're kind of spread out? Or should I go for the UEV ones, which are also 20 points, but they're all in Generalis, so I can assign them how I want? Probably something in between, because these go into the structures, which I wanted to say earlier, but I forgot. So each of these different threading multis has a different number of thread helices that it can have in its structure. This one has 8, for example. This one has 12, so that determines the maximum number of points that this can have. Each of the tier 2 helices gives you 20 points, so this thing would have 240 points to spend in total, which is kind of not a lot, actually. But I'm going to start today by making the multi-threaded component synthesis forge. Up to 480 points or more after I get Riftic Infusion Assembly. But for now, the maximum is 480 points, and quite a lot of other stuff. This craft is probably going to take a while. Surprisingly though, nothing new, I don't think. Besides the threading controller, which I already made last time, and the controller. Controller, by the way, is expensive. This thing is a monster. 72 component part hubs, 72 component nexuses. Nexi? No. I think it's nexuses. 144 abyssal mainframes, 40 epic scanner 3s, 40 epic assembler 3s, 36 prisma nuclei. Yikes. 540 buckets of pure dragon breath. Yeah, the controller is very expensive. And it takes 30 minutes to craft, but that's a UIV, so still like 4 minutes to craft. This is big though, because this has its own recipe map, and overall, I also need 2 of them. One for component parts and one for components, but they are definitely worth it because I only spend 75% of the inputs to get 100% of the output. And I have to craft things a stack at a time, but that's fine. The 25% cost saving is definitely going to add up because it also compounds into the parts, right? So making motors is 25% cheaper, and then making pumps uses only 75% of those motors. So It's like 75% squared of the basic parts that are used. And it's even cheaper in these high tier components because each of these motors and stuff uses the component parts, like the transmission assembly and stuff. And those are also cheaper. So yeah, it's gonna add up for sure. So time to craft 2 of these things. Oh my god. Oh my god. Holy shit, that's not good. I've started work on the MTCSFs. All the blocks are crafted. Those were actually pretty easy. The main cost is really just the controller. While crafting sub-components of these controllers, like the component part hub and stuff, I noticed that there are some pretty significant bottlenecks around the base, and I'm gonna address them. Short list. Compact assembly lines. I only have these 4. Not enough. I need to make this like 16 at least. Atomic materialization plants. Those are the better chem plants. Probably replacing this one would be good, but just generally around the base using that instead is what I want to do. Okay, this is a big one. These dual vacuum chamber thingies are not at all fast enough. These are by far my biggest bottleneck, and I will be making the auroric vacuum isolation reactor. This has parallel hatches, so it's gonna be fast. Also a pretty cool structure, and I don't think there's anything that I actually can't make. Pretty sure I can make all of this stuff. There's some new stuff like the absolute annihilation casings and aberration casings, but I'm pretty sure those are just like made from alloys that I can do in the Hellforge. True synthesis array would also be good for the silicon carbide bismuth tritelluride dust. This is not fast enough. Also, I realized like my automation doesn't really let me do different types of recipes in the same multi. So I kind of need a second one and a second isolation chamber because the draconic stem cell recipes kept clogging. So yeah, it's looking like one machine per per recipe, but that's fine. And finally, a surprising, maybe not that surprising bottleneck, the industrial accumulation vessels. These are the barrels, basically. This is where I make my mycelium spores and my warped nylium spores and stuff, but this is not fast enough. This has an upper limit on speed because it doesn't subtick, so the most I can do is 320 spores per second, which is not great. So I kind of just have to spam these. I don't have any other option. There's no parallel hatch version of this. So I'm gonna work on those. This includes 3 new multis, so you get to watch 3 more build montages. Now this thing is super nice and super fast, and I finally got around to processing 2 more skip recipes. Zapalite to Zapolgium and Titanite to Zirconium. So far I've been relying on the lines for these, but I don't need to anymore. I can just do the whole chemplant skip. Now I think I have a pretty big backlog of this stuff, so it may take some time to process all of it. I don't even know if one of these can keep up with how fast I'm producing those ores. But this is pretty nice. Look at these amounts, 43,000 Zapolgium dust per 21 seconds. That's pretty insane, actually. Big help. This is a big help. Meanwhile, progress update on the 2 MTCSFs. Nearly done. Nearly done. Pretty fun to build. A lot of disconnected parts, which is a little less fun to build, but I got it done. I did not get the glass down though, because it was all super disconnected and didn't look fun to do, so I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to terminal the glass, but I did do everything else. A little bit of copy-paste gadget. This like bottom ring is identical to this middle ring, so I could just copy-paste it. It was pretty awesome. And that looks pretty sick. And a second one. With neutronium turbines inside. Finally. Migrated all the recipes and scans into these data banks and into these 2 MTCSFs, which, by the way, took me literally days to make. These are expensive, and literally like 99% of the cost is the controller. Anyway, I made scans of everything. These actually needed the component data cores, but everything is done now, and I can craft everything in here. I still have to configure my threading thing. I haven't done that yet. Haven't really decided what I want to do here. I'm probably mostly going to dump in Phylum and Velocitas, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I wonder if there's like a spreadsheet that I could make that kind of solves this optimally, but I don't know. This multi, by the way, doesn't take parallel hatches, so the only way I get parallels is with this parallel thingy. So I probably do have to put some points into that, but it increases the duration, so maybe Velocitas to counter that? I don't know. I'm not sure. We'll see. But cool, these are finally done. And in the meantime, I also crafted up an Ox 2. Which completes all the necessary quests on the Draconic Empires tab, and it also completes the entirety of Line of Progression. So I have everything. I also made the tier 7 reflector casings, because felt like it. Now I would like to make the rest of the threading multis, and then it's time to craft some cats. This is done in the Cato Shrine, which is probably my favorite multi-block in any mod pack ever, if I had to guess. The scan is a raw cod, for which I'm probably going to make a farm fermenting arboreal rejuvenation monstrosity, because I'm going to need a lot of raw cod. Because all the cats, yeah, they demand a lot of fish, so weirdly enough, I need to start mass producing fish. And wool, but I guess that's just string, so polycaprolactum. Each of these cats is craftable now. Pumbaa, Maxwell, Balanok, Vasilisa, and Mars. They all basically need a bunch of sensors like ZPM parts, wool, fish, and dye. UV parts, same thing. UIV parts, same thing. UEV parts, UHV parts. I can also combine these cats to make a Don't Worry About It. And then I can combine the Don't Worry About It with some Komarus to make a I Said Not to Worry About It. This is a funny little item. It's gonna take a little while. Just kidding, this thing gets perfect overclocks, so it's actually not gonna take very long at all. Maybe I'll make one if I feel like it, but maybe not yet. Because these Komaru controllers are kinda monstrously expensive. Anyway, once I make the cats, and once I make some Komaru gravitational stabilizers, and Komaru rift collars, and Komaru platings, I can make a Komaru, a kaleidoscopically omnipotent, mystically ascendant rift umbilicus. I think that's umbilicus. It's a small multi-block. And I will be building this by hand. Probably gonna stream it because I don't wanna edit this. This looks like a nightmare to edit. Building it looks fine. So we'll do that together, I guess. Once I craft all of this stuff, Jesus Christ. Anyway, these little Komaru subparts are probably gonna be pretty chill to make, I think. UXC circuits, UIV parts. If there's anything new that's particularly interesting, I'll bring it up. Maybe this liquid netherite trisilex oxide is new. But it's just a layered chemistry recipe, so it's actually not too bad. As for the Ox 2, I'm gonna be so real with you. I don't feel like building this because it's just another fusion ring. So I'm just gonna terminal it. We'll be back with some threading multis and the Cato Shrine though. But I think that will all happen next time. I think the next episode is going to be a very, very build montage heavy episode. Because there are quite a few multi-threaded multi-blocks and they're all kind of big and kind of intricate. So that should be fun. I'm not sure if I should just sort of make them all at once or if I should just start making them as I find that I need them. I'll probably do that, to be honest. But for now, I think that's a good time to call it. Thank you for watching this episode of the HamCorp Training Manual. In the next episode, we will build the Komaru and start working towards setting up Riftic assembly. We may also build multiple multi-threaded machines. See you next time.